I've tested every sleeping pad on the market so I can let you know which one is the best. Okay, maybe not every sleeping pad out there, but I've tested over 50 of the most popular sleeping pads on the market so I can let you know which one I think is the warmest, the most comfortable, the best for ultralighters, the best affordable option, and then most importantly, which one is the best all-arounder. Starting with the category of warmest sleeping pad, obviously the priority for this category is warmth, and there's only one sleeping pad that I trust when temperatures really get low, and that's the Warmest X-Therm. I've taken this pad down to minus 50 degrees Celsius with a foam pad underneath and was plenty comfortable. That's pretty phenomenal, and the fact that the size regular only weighs 440 grams while being that warm and having an R value of 7.3, that's crazy. I've tried other winter sleeping pads from brands like Sea to Summit and Xped, but none of them come close to being as warm as the X-Therm in real world conditions, even though they do have higher R values in that 7+ range. The next category is the best ultralight pad, and I have 3 different options for you in this category. If you're going ultralight, you obviously are going to be prioritizing weight, but you also don't want to be compromising warmth and comfort too much. If you want to go with the lightest pad that's still going to keep you warm, you have to stick within the Warmest family with the Warmest NeoAir X-Lite. This pad has the best warmth to weight ratio out there, weighing only 330 grams for the size regular and still having an R value of 4.5. 2 other solid ultralight options are the Big Agnes Zoom UL and then the Nemo Tensor sleeping pads. With all 3 pads, you are sacrificing some comfort in order to achieve those weight savings. Even with the Big Agnes Zoom UL, which I had really high hopes for due to the quilted baffling pattern, you're not getting as comfortable as a pad as you would with the pads that we're gonna see in the most comfortable category. The Zoom UL was the most comfortable of the 3 ultralight options, followed by the Nemo Tensor and then the X-Lite. The X-Lite's the least comfortable because of those horizontal baffles. I find my shoulder falls asleep when I'm sleeping on that. The Tensor has a slightly dimpled pattern to it, but still has some of those horizontal baffles, whereas then you have the Zoom UL, which has the best baffling system with this dimpled quilted pattern. The next category is the most affordable sleeping pad option. It's really tough to make a good affordable sleeping pad due to patents that are out there as well as difficulties in the manufacturing process for really good sleeping pads. Most of the time, affordable options are going to be sacrificing warmth or are going to be super heavy. The Prior Recharge XL is the best affordable option that I found and is my go-to when I need an affordable sleeping pad that's still going to keep me warm in most 3-season conditions and not weigh a ton. The Recharge XL weighs 737 grams, which is pretty reasonable, but then costs under $100. The downsides with the Recharge XL are that it's not as warm as some other pads out there. It has an advertised R value of 4.4, but I definitely wouldn't be taking this out on frozen cold ground or in sub-freezing conditions. It also uses horizontal baffles, which in my experience is the least comfortable baffling system, as we already talked about with the X-Lite. Warmest and Pariah, they really need to just either go to vertical baffles or figure out a way to use that quilted pattern. For the most comfortable sleeping pad category, there's 2 things that I look for in a comfortable sleeping pad. The first one is the ability for the pad to relieve pressure points, especially if I'm laying on my side. I don't want pressure on my shoulder or my hip. Sometimes with a pad that's bad at relieving pressure points, my arm or my leg will go numb and fall asleep as I'm laying on the pad. The second thing is warmth. You don't want to be waking up shivering in the middle of the night. Doesn't matter how comfortable you are. If you're cold, you're not going to be having a good night's sleep. My favorite metric for measuring how comfortable a sleeping pad is how many times I wake up throughout the night in order to shift positions or wake up shivering. For me, if I can sleep through the night on a sleeping pad or only maybe wake up once, maybe twice throughout the night in order to shift positions, that's a really good sign of a comfortable sleeping pad. With the 2 pads that are winners of this category, the Sea to Summit Etherlight XT as well as the Big Agnes Q-Core Deluxe, I've slept through the night multiple times with these pads, and that's a sign that these are very comfortable pads. There's only one other pad other than these 2 where I've slept through the night without waking up once, and that's the pad that's the winner of the best all-around category. The key to the comfort with these 2 pads is this quilted pattern that you see on the top. You have these raised areas and then these dimpled lower areas, and each of those creates a little pressure point. You can look at it kind of like the springs in a mattress. Each of these little raised areas is like a spring, so as you're laying on the mattress, it's going to be relieving pressure points at those specific areas. Compared to a pad with vertical or horizontal baffles, those pads have many fewer kind of spring-like structures in them, so you're not going to have as many points that are relieving pressure, whereas on something like the Etherlight XT, you have dozens and dozens of these individual pressure relief points. The one downside with both of these pads is they're not made for very cold weather. So you're not gonna be wanting to take them out in the spring when the ground's still frozen or a little bit cold. If you're taking out in later summer or fall when the ground is warmer, you can get down to taking them down below freezing, but you probably don't want to be going below 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Both of these pads are fairly heavy. I have 25-inch wide versions of both of them because if you're going comfort, you want a 25-inch wide pad. And the Etherlite XT weighs 627 grams, so that's fairly heavy. And then the Big Agnes Q-Core Deluxe is a whopping 907 grams, so not a light pad. Before we get into the best all-around pad and the pad that's gonna be my go-to on most trips this year, I wanna have two honorable mentions. So we have the Rab Ionosphere 5, which is a new pad for 2023, and then the XPED Ultra 5R. Neither of these pads are the most comfortable pads out there. They're not the warmest pads out there, and they're not the most lightweight, but they're a good balance of all of those things, and definitely pads that you should keep on your radar if you like vertical baffles or see them on sale. I find that vertical baffles, like on these two pads, aren't quite as comfortable as that quilted dimpled pattern that we saw on the Q-Core Deluxe and the Etherlite XT, but it's more comfortable than horizontal baffles. And with the vertical baffles, I've slept through a night with waking up one, maybe two times, so they are fairly comfortable. And what's nice about these pads is they're slightly warmer than some of the other pads out there. Both of them have R values of 4.8, and sometimes R value isn't representative of how warm a sleeping pad is gonna sleep, but with both of these, I trust that R value. I've tested them down in below freezing temperatures on cold ground, and they held up really well. They're not gonna be winter pads for you unless you live in a warmer climate, but like I said, they're good all-arounders and definitely pads to keep on your radar. Now it's time to give the award for the best all-around sleeping pad and the pad that's gonna be my go-to for most trips this year. For a pad to be a good all-arounder, it needs to be comfortable, warm, lightweight, and affordable. The REI Helix sleeping pad hits all of those marks, but does better in some categories than others. For comfort, it competes toe-to-toe with the other comfort options out there. It's the only other pad other than the Q-Core Deluxe and Etherlite XT where I've slept through the night without waking up once. And it's quite a warm sleeping pad as well. It's not as warm as the X-Therm, but it's as warm, if not warmer, than almost any other sleeping pad that we looked at today. It's also reasonably priced at $160 US. That's for all three models. You can get a regular size, a regular wide size, which is what I have here. It's 25 inches wide, but then 6 feet long, or a large size, which is 25 inches wide and then a little bit longer. Also, this pad is quiet. We haven't talked about noise much, but with some of the pads out there, like the Etherlite XT, as you sleep on it, it may make kind of a rubbery sound. The X-Lite, even though with the new NXT version, it is quite a bit quieter than the previous versions, it still kind of has that crinkly noise to it. But with the Helix, it's not really noisy at all, which is gonna be a really nice feature for some people. Where the pad falls a little bit short is weight. It weighs 737 grams, which means that it's lighter than a lot of the pads that we looked at, but not nearly as light as the ultralight versions out there. For example, the X-Lite in a regular size weighs half as much as the REI Helix. The reason why the Helix is the best all-around pad is because it takes the features that all of the other pads use in order to be the best in their categories and then puts it all into one pad. And then you can see it has the quilted, dimpled baffling system that we saw on the Q-Core Deluxe and the Etherlite XT in order to provide comfort. That reflective insulation inside of it is also very good at keeping you warm. It's the same sort of technology that's used inside the Thermarest X-Therm sleeping pad. If you're looking for a camp pillow to pair with your sleeping pad, then go check out this video right up here. I've looked at all the best pillows on the market and I've narrowed it down to the top 5. These are pillows that are going to be lightweight, warm, as well as comfortable.